The story starts with a guy exhausted, calling out to his friends and asking if this dungeon they are trying to do isn't way too hard, man. One shouts saying that the guild reinforcements were coming and they just needed to hold on a little longer, but they were sure that at this pace, everyone was going to end up dying, until suddenly a guy appears with a book in his hand and tells everyone to take a step back. Everyone turns to see who it is and a bunch of spears rain down on the monster. The dude with the phone on his forehead there, just now I noticed that, says that, yeah, it really is him, man, and asked the guy live streaming if they are able to see the Hunter of Hunters. The legendary guy, Shinbak, was the one standing in front of them. Someone is watching this live on their phone right now and questions this whole Hunter of Hunters thing. To him, that made no sense since this guy couldn't even attend his own son's graduation. Yeah, you can tell already, right? That kid cursing over there is probably that bastard's son. A friend comes up and asks why he's alone and Sun Yun kinda awkward says they are busy. The guys ask him to take a picture and he helps out. While thinking that it's always like this, his dad is always busy. When he gets home, he sees his mom kind of tired. She's taking care of his sister who's been in a coma for 12 years, man, doing those leg movements, I guess to keep the muscles flexible, that kind of stuff. Right. Just in case she wakes up, Sung Yoon asks why she didn't go to the graduation, and she just answers that he should already know why. Angrily, he shouts for peace and asks why not, it was just one day he needed. It seemed like everyone there only cared about the sister, but then someone shows up behind him and says that he was yelling too much. Man, he looks back. It's the badass dad, right man? Guy Shinbake, Hunter of Hunters. He's about to ask how the bastard got there so fast, but the dad just says he already told him not to raise his voice in the house. With that, Sung Yoon turns to smile and the dad wants to know where he's going. When our boy says he's going to the training hall, the dad says he's already told him over and over. With the talent he has, it's impossible for him to become a hunter. It would be way better if he just gave up on that already. Obviously, man, that only made the boy even more motivated in training. Chuyero, who's the coach, says that today he was more intense than usual. The two are locked in, shoulder to shoulder, until the guy goes for a move, and our boy has to retreat. Whoa, he pulled out a little Kurapika power there, man. I thought the bastard didn't have any power at all. The attack goes toward Ju Young and starts wrapping around the sword, but in a second, the guy destroyed everything. Sung Yoon, poor guy, didn't understand a thing and was on the ground in a second. The guy still mocks him, saying it might have worked this time if those chains of his weren't so weak. Maybe he'd fight better if he didn't try to rely on that power. Sometime later at the restaurant, the coach says he'll pay for today's meal since he got beaten up, but Sung Yoon says there's no point in trying to pay for anyone when he's broke too. All he wanted was for them to keep training. Jun Yong asks why he wants to train even more. The test for the Hunter Academy was already over, so they just had to wait for the results. But Sung Yoon shouts no. Most of the competitors had multiple abilities or were regressors. Man, what the heck? A bunch of people already came back from the future, but how does that timeline even work? Explain that to us. And Sun Yun is there shouting saying that with the garbage abilities he has, it's impossible for him to become a hunter. And if he wanted his father to acknowledge him, he couldn't just sit at home resting. Choi Young takes a look and says that all this just proves he should give up. He's already noticed that the boy doesn't even seem comfortable in his own house. At this rate, Sunny won't have anywhere to return to when things get tough. Outside in the rain, a reporter is talking saying it's been 100 years since the monsters appeared. Decades have passed since those disgusting creatures started disguising themselves as humans. They say they are regressors that belong in this world, but that's just talk to fool everyone, and they need to make it clear that this here is not these people's home. It would be better if all those weirdos went back to the hell they came from. While the guy is giving that speech, Sung Yoon is just standing there with his phone ringing. The message from the test to become a hunter at the academy had arrived, and obviously, to no one's surprise, the fool hadn't passed. Then everyone looks and sees him yelling or saying that this place he lives in was already a hell. 10 seconds later, he's just standing there like a loser in the rain. On the ground, his phone is ringing with his mom calling. He answers kind of awkwardly, asking what it is, and in the next scene, he's arriving home all scared. The doctor says it's crazy to see someone who was in a coma for 12 years wake up in a condition that's actually not that bad. Then the mom turns crying to another boy and tells him to say hi to his sister. For sure, this sister who was in a coma for 12 years is gonna wake up with the most broken power in the world and is gonna get even more pissed off. And sometime later, the mom says the sister's feeling kind of anxious, so they're gonna have to stay close to her a lot for her to start getting used to everything. She asked our boy to take shifts, but he says he has a lot to do too. Just because he graduated doesn't mean he has all the free time in the world. The mom says it's his sister, but is shouting saying he doesn't even remember ever talking to her. Man, this protagonist, the bastard doesn't help us like him either. Damn jerk, take care of your freaking sister. The dad tells him to watch what he's saying, but our boy argues back, saying the one who needs to watch what they say is him. He doesn't deserve all this arguing. The sister says she doesn't like this and starts crying. The mom goes to comfort the girl, and our boy just stands there like an idiot after saying a bunch of crap. After that, he started spending at least 3 whole days at the hospital with her. Our boy realized the mom wanted him to get closer and closer, but the way the sister was glancing sideways at him, we could tell our boy wasn't really into that. Outside, there he is with his tired chains. As always, the bastard at least didn't stop training, determined, even after not getting accepted, knowing that this training would make no difference. Until one moment, he enters the room and the bed's empty. Man. Outside, his sister is sitting on a bench. When he arrives and calls for her, he gets startled and yells. He asks what she's doing there and tells her she can't just disappear like that. The sister, whose name is Soyeon, kind of embarrassed, apologizes, saying she felt kind of suffocated in there and asks if she can at least stay outside for a little while. He seems a bit bothered, but says it's okay. So he's sitting there beside her messing with his phone. Suddenly, the sister asks if by any chance he hates her. It gets a little thrown off asking why, and she says he seems kind of scary, and that he's more like their dad now and used to be cuter. Our boy explains that the last time they talked, he was 5 years old, and he doesn't even remember what he was like back then. Stogan says she doesn't really remember either. Dad and mom are older. The siblings changed completely. She couldn't even go to school. For some reason, she felt like she was alone in this world. Back in our boy in the heart, right guys, he also feels alone after all. And then he asks what nonsense she's saying. She had him, had mom, had a dad, so how could she be alone? Not to mention that she could always make new friends. Just because she couldn't go to school doesn't mean she'd be alone forever. That made her boy think that going to Hunter Academy wasn't the only path to becoming a hunter. Ju Young, who's his coach, never went to the academy. It was still way too early for him to give up. Then So Young thanks him and says they better go back. Our boy then goes and asks how she even got down there. There was no wheelchair, and her muscles should be totally atrophied. But, guys, the girl is floating. Right, man. Deposit me $1 million right now, and this was obvious. Damn it. He asks what's going on, and she says that the whole time she was asleep, she was living in the fairy realm. Sung Yoon is standing there with his mouth open, remembering that reporter who said that these people who returned from another world are a bunch of demons. And the dad also saying that with the talent he has, he'd never become a hunter. Seeing her floating there calmly and glowing, man, the boy was shocked. We go into a flashback to find out if this little brat was strong in the past too. The mom showed up to scold the 2 damn kids who were super dirty. They complained, but said that tomorrow they were going to play more and come back home. However, tomorrow, man, is uncharted territory for anyone. Already at home, they took a bath, had dinner, and went to sleep. So Young lay down wondering what she would do tomorrow. But it was at that moment that a weird blue fairy appeared and said she had been chosen to go to their world, and asked if she was interested in saving that place. After that, So-Yeon spent about 6 months in that other world. But when she came back, she found out that 12 years have passed in her world. And now in the hospital, a guy says that he's sure his daughter is a returning. The bracelet on her arm should be some kind of awakened ability, but it didn't work on those who brought powers from another world. The guy then asked So-Yang to talk about that place she went to. She just says that the fairy explained what she could and couldn't do, how to use magic, and the knowledge needed to survive, and also how to face the queen. The guy's a bit confused. Right, he tells her to talk about this queen. She says that this queen was a bad person in that world, and there was a promise that if she could give her a beating, she could return to this world. The guy asks if she came back after killing the queen, and the girl yells saying no. She managed to solve the conflict by talking and also didn't learn any dangerous magic. The guy though says that none of that matters. The power of returnees is always dangerous. That's because most games strength enough to save another world. That alone was enough for him to be sure that the power she received exceeded that of an S-rank hunter. Lastly, it was common for the abilities of a returnee to be different from the ones they had in the other world. That's why the relatives need to keep an eye on her and stop her from using abilities no matter what. Tomorrow, the hunter's office will get in touch with her. At the door, Sung-in heard everything and just walked away a man. Remembering that in the hunter test, they said that his physical skills were actually good for being a hunter. The problem was that his ability was useless in battle against monsters. That's because the durability of his chains was worse than a regular chain. That's why his ability was rated rank F. Oh man, I thought it was like Kurapika's badass chains, but the kid's starving with some Walmart chains. Right then, the sister showed up kind of awkward and asked if he's not surprised. He didn't have to be scared. Besides, nothing had changed from the past. But Sung-Yun just told her to get lost. Man, the poor girl kind of shrank and said she'd rather be alone. Oh, Sung-Yun, poor girl. She was there trembling, trying to understand why, but he just shouted at her and told her to disappear. Man, with that, she got up and left. There he was on the street, all alone again. Suddenly, he stops and asks himself what he's doing. Why is he so pathetic like this? In the middle of these questions, he notices people kind of gathering and wonders why. In the middle of the crowd was his dad, all bloody. As always, right man? This guy's working hard. Meanwhile, his sister was at the hospital looking out the window, remembering the scolding she got. He didn't seem like the boy from before, and suddenly she vanishes and takes off flying man. She flies a bit over the city and stops in front of that same playground from the past. Remembering their mom taking care of the two of them, all she wanted was to go back to those times. She starts crying, repeating that she wanted to go back when suddenly some guys appear behind and she turns around. The blonde one on the right asks what she's doing there, if she's okay. She doesn't really know how to respond, and he says this place has been abandoned for a long time because of a dungeon break that happened. It wasn't good for a poor person to want to sleep around here. She's stepping back, kind of backing off as they approach. When she's about to say that she's fine and knows the way back, out of nowhere, the guy hits her on the head. Man, what the hell? The girl went limp and dropped flat to the ground. Obviously, the bastard still says that if he hit her, he gets to keep her. But, guys, the girls gang back up. The guy asks what's going on. How the hell was that Brett getting up? And from the looks of it, she's not happy about taking that hit to the head. The friends asked if the guy doesn't even know how to use a bat if he couldn't blow her head off. And the dude says it doesn't make sense. The bat's all dirty. He definitely hit hard. Meanwhile, Soyeon is wondering, right, why he hit her like that. The guy gets closer again, saying that maybe this way will be better. But at that moment, she points her hand and says that if they keep coming forward, she's going to shoot. Guys, you three, you better back off, man. I can see you're about to get skewered. Obviously, the three side characters are excited to complete their part in the story. Then So-Yang remembers a magic book the fairy gave her. This was a basic magic called bow and arrow. She didn't have to worry because whoever gets hit by it doesn't die. Normally, they just stay petrified for a short time. However, the second she fired, right man, look at that red strike hitting. The guy's expression changed immediately, and So remembers that the guild guy warned her. The moment a returning comes back to this world, their abilities change completely. And, man, she opened up a crater so deep you could see the two behind it. Dude fell there on the ground, just a leftover smear. And So Young, looking at her own hand, wondered why that happened. Back to our boy in the moment of the crowd, man. There was the dad holding that YouTube guy by the arm, all dead and wrecked. Everyone's asking if he's really dead, and not even his dad notices that Sun Yun is right there watching everything. Future Mr. Beast got bagged, and the dad asks, right, why he's there and when the sister is. Our boy, kind of awkward, asks if he can even go out for a walk. The dad gives him a stare and questions if that's the first time he's seen a body. Our boy says yes, and the dad then says 4 out of 10. That was the mortality rate in the hunter industry last year. Out of 10 people, 2 suffer an extremely serious injury. Normally, what's left behind gets traumatized and pretends to be a hunter, and that pattern held for life, no exceptions for rookies or veterans. He had to understand that this was the kind of world he lived in, and wanted to know if the boy was really confident and wanted to survive in something like this. Out of nowhere, Sun Yun totally freaked out, already saw he was going to wimp out from fear of his dad, and says no. The dad just puts his hand on the guy and says he's sure the son can't handle it. That's why the boy's all messed up too. Curse family. Already outside the hospital looking in, he says it was always like this. Here, he doesn't have any ability and is trying to deny reality or reject that is weak. Remembering when he used to watch his dad with all those hunters and their swag, probably all dead. He didn't even know anymore what he wanted to do. At that moment, while asking himself if becoming a hunter is what he really wants, he sees his sister flying their man. He gets closer, kind of uneasy, and quickly notices she's covered in blood. And there it is, she got that from their dad. He tells her to come down, asks if she's hurt, and what happened. Then So-Hyun snaps out of it again and remembers that guy said her abilities could be dangerous. She starts repeating for him not to come closer while he doesn't understand anything. Right then, she remembers the guy she blew up with the arrow shot, tells him to stay away, and out of nowhere, a light explodes there in the middle of the forest. Sometime later, he's knocked into a tree all wrecked too. In the middle of everything, the sister is surrounded by a purple aura and someone is saying there's a person destroying buildings. She's going crazy, while Sun Yun is asking if she's lost her mind. What happened? The poor girl is repeating to herself that she wants to stop this, but at the same time saying she doesn't want to stop and totally losing it. She tells him to get away. Trees are being cut down, firing off slashes everywhere. Man, for real. Now I understand why that reporter said these returnees came from hell. They really do. The worst part is that Sun Yoon knew that using powers indiscriminately in the street would make her get executed. What was he going to do? He could try to stop her, alert their dad, but the police would arrive way faster than he could. That's when he thinks of something and asks himself if there's nothing he can do. But looking at himself, he knows, man, he doesn't stand a chance against her. The best thing he could really do was run. In the end, none of this was his fault. But suddenly, he seems to see a little kid there staring at him, while his sister keeps going crazy, saying she doesn't want to do this. When she opens her eyes, man, she sees him running toward her with those tire chains dodging everything, yelling, asking if she could hear him, and telling her to calm down. At that moment, our boy remembers what his dad said, right, about the hunter mortality rate. Man, he's not even officially a hunter yet and already risking his life. But at the same time, he came to the conclusion that risking your life is what a hunter does. Then he yells, telling her she needs to calm down and break free from that confusion. Soyeon starts to wonder why he was going so far for her. She wasn't the same person he used to know. The fairy suddenly takes her hand and asks what the problem is. She was the heroine who had saved their world, but Soyeon answers no. In that other world, she was only physically an adult. She didn't have any friends and was dangerous. She had barely arrived and already killed a bunch of people, and everyone hated her. The fairy though says that's not true. At the very least, she'd never seen anyone risk their own life to save someone they hated. But Chan gets close, and in the next scene, she throws the boy with her in her arms, crying. Problem is the police are surrounding the place, right man, so things won't go smoothly for him. Our boy sees himself as a little kid, all happy, and says that at least he managed to do that. Another dude shows up and asks his friend if she saw what that kid did. With that, the incident was handled by the police. They made sure nothing reached the news. But the obvious result is, right man, Soyeon ended up in jail. The guard shows up and says visiting hours have started. While being led down the hallway, she remembers how much her mom cried as soon as she found out she'd be arrested. The guy opens the door, and she thinks it'll be her mom. But who's their man? It's her dad. She sits there all slouched, tries to explain things, but he interrupts and says he's there to get her out of that place. That woman with glasses who came and spoke with her had the power to read people's memories. She was able to see in the memories that she was attacked first and used her power to defend herself. By law, that act of using force was justified, so obviously, she couldn't be imprisoned for it. Since Soyeon's only from the fairy world, she doesn't get any of this justified action. Use of force, legal stuff, right? But the dad explains. Basically, it means she's not guilty, and that's why she'll be released. Awkwardly, she tries to say she killed someone, but the dad says the person she shot didn't die. There are tons of users who can recover from any kind of wound, so is probably fine by now. Man, healers in this world are buffed. The guy was, okay, fine then. But Soyeon is just crying saying she feels relieved. The dad says nothing, and then the glasses woman asks if they are done talking. He's outside and says, yeah. Then the woman explains that they couldn't pay the hospital bill, and is definitely going to face punishment for that. The dad replies that it's all good. He's already relieved, and it'll end like this. The woman tells him not to worry since everyone there owes something to the great hunter Shinbig. What she wants to know is why he's so sure to say that. The person she attacked surely must have died. Shinbek says that maybe when she learns the truth, she'll be more emotionally stable. The woman says that makes sense and hands over a document, telling him to take it. Here, he reads a document for his daughter. Suddenly, he frowns and asks who sent this. Apparently, that dude from the foreign showed up must have been him who sent this mess. Meanwhile, Sung Hyun hasn't even recovered and is already back at his practice. Man, the boy's great talent is throwing a chain that catches a can. He's standing in front of a guy there who doesn't seem very impressed. He wants to know who that crazy dude is, and the coach replies he doesn't know either. The guy says not to worry too much about him and to keep doing whatever they were doing. Sung Hyun though replies that he can't focus with a damn commentator beside him talking crap. The guy, however, asks if it's really because of him. Is he really going to say he can't focus in a real fight because of something so trivial? That kind of triviality would definitely happen in a dungeon. And if he can't concentrate just because someone's eating chips next to him, it already shows he's not ready. Right then, Sung Yoon steps forward and asks if the old man knows him. This guy's about to pick a fight right now. Sung Yoon is going to talk about how much he practiced, but the guy just gets up and says he doesn't care and says that he recognizes the boy really has good physical ability, but his proficiency was terrible. Our boy didn't even notice that the guy in 1 second was already behind him. The man says those chains that he created with his own energy are awful since he's forced to keep consuming just to be able to control them. Not to mention, he uses too much power with each action, and they're not precise at all either. He needed to understand that professionals don't even use much power. Man, he grabs the bag of chips and says this is how it's done. Man, with one strike, all the cans are pierced. He asked if the boy got it, and our boy is really shocked. The craziest thing is the bag of chips that was wrapped in his energy was still intact. While Junom is wondering who this guy is, the man walks over to our boy and says that not even he knows his true power. Then he pulls out a scroll and says, this is a tool that summons returnees, and he wanted him to bring it closer to the chain. The second he touches it, the item vanishes, and he says now he understands. Regarding our kids, do you remember what happened in the hospital? Because he clearly saw that the moment the boy's chains touched, the sister completely extinguished her powers. In other words, he had the never-before-seen talent to seal the powers of attorneys. Trying to use those chains as a weapon was the true definition of wasted talent. Confused, Song-Yun asks how he knows all this and who the hell he is. He introduces himself as Ji-Young, a professional hunter and a professor at the Special Abilities Academy. And today, he's there to recruit the bastard, right man? Our boy is totally frozen and says he already failed the admission test. Ji-Young says not to worry about that. He has the authority to enroll any student there, and the ability the boy had was good enough. But, of course, he's the one who makes the final decision. Is he going to want to join the academy or not? Man, the boy suddenly has that dumb actor face, saying, what is this? Almost crying. Oh my god, you just lost 10 aura points. The guy laughs and welcomes him to the Hunter Academy, but suddenly, something comes flying toward him. Ji-Young turns around and manages to catch it mid-air. Man, whoa, it's that paper. And here comes Shinbak, pissed off and radiating aura, demanding that Ji-Young explain right now what he's planning with that. But Ji-Young turns and replies that that's what he should be asking. While the dad is freaking out, Sung-Young doesn't understand anything that's going on. And now Ji-Young face to face just says that the more he sees Shinbak, the more he realizes he's getting old and wrinkled. He should start attending the meetings before people forget what he looks like. The dad though tells him to stop changing the subject and answer what that thing is. Ji-Kyung says it's obvious. He just sent the kids a little recommendation letter. So-Young was a returning with an S-rank ability, and Sun-Young had an unprecedented ability. The dad though says he doesn't accept that for either of them. Even though So-Yoon had an older body, she only spent 6 months in the other world. So she still have the mindset of a child and can't go to an academy like that. Ji-Young, however, says she needs to adapt man, and he's the one who always says that. Besides, it seems her power is going out of control. At this moment, without knowing how to use her powers, she was basically a bomb, and the only chance was to train with the experts at the school. But the dad says that he alone is already enough to train her. He glances to the side and says that besides that, this boy there didn't have any talent. And he tells our boy that he needs to understand. Determination without strength only leads to death. Here goes our boy who's emo one moment and hype the next. But then Ji-Young says that is wrong. He saw with his own eyes that this boy was brave and threw himself in to save his sister. He has the bravery he needed to become a hunter. But Shinbak replies that that's not courage, it's recklessness. He turns to our boy and asks if, at that moment, he knew what his sister's ability was and if he really thought he could stop her power. Sung-Young, all crooked, tries to explain that he was just afraid she'd get hurt. But the father cuts him off and says that's the problem. He wasn't focused on the outcome. The only reason he's still alive now is because he got lucky his ability worked this time. But is he going to live as a hunter who gambles with luck every time? Woo Jae-hyun was trying to recommend the boy but didn't know a thing. That letter wouldn't get him any special treatment. In the end, he'd just end up at that academy he'd get crushed by the competition. Man, this dad really doesn't help either. Such a bastard to bring his son down. While the two are arguing, Sun-Yoon asks why the father always does this. Why is it that not even once he has the guts to say that he did a good job? He's not even praised for saving his sister, something that should be obvious. He's almost going crazy there when suddenly someone grabs his arm. It's Ju-Young, who praises our boy. Now that a teacher had recognized him, he was closer to his dream. Our boy's all awkward, saying it's not really like that or whatever, but the guy tells him not to overthink. All he needs to do is follow the path he believes is right. Looking at the chains in his hand, he says he trusts the work the boy has shown, and obviously says straight to the father that he shouldn't care about people who don't acknowledge him. Even more so with someone who doesn't know a thing about him. Man, I thought this dude worked for the dad, right? Like some kind of spy, but apparently, they don't get along either. And the dad says now, and he understands why the kid is so obsessed with becoming a hunter. It must have been this guy who was the idiot that gave him this false hope. The dad's aura makes the guy start sweating cold, but the boy slaps himself in the face, while mentally thanking the teacher for helping him clear his head. Then he says that, at first, he really just wanted to be like his dad. He wanted to be acknowledged and prove that he could win. He only thought about pathetic things like that. But that day in the hospital, things were completely different. And now he was ready, man. He was going to become a hunter, even if it meant having to fight against his father. But Shinbak turns and says he knew. Words alone weren't enough for him to understand things. Man puts his hand on the boy's shoulder, leans in close to his ear, and tells him to go ahead and try then. Our boy Yoon flinches and the dad says that soon enough he's going to realize guys. He wasn't born to walk this path he's trying to follow. The father would give him 1 year to enter the student council. If he couldn't even do that, he would be forcibly brought back home. Ji-jong tries to say something, but the dad just tells him to shut up and mourns that Sun-yoon better protect his sister. Her powers weren't stable at all, and like it or not, the only option was to send the boy along. He better make sure she lives peacefully at school, and just like the first condition, if anything happens, he'll be brought back immediately. He asks if the boy understands, and of course, he says yes. Right, that one listens to his father, a man. With that, the guy lets him go and walks away. The three are left there looking like fools, saying they really thought they were going to die. Already out on the street, Ji-young calls for him, asking if he didn't go too far, saying the boy would have to make it into the student council. He should know that only the strongest could get into that position. Him being ranked F and still in the first year, it would be impossible. The father, however, says that if the boy had the courage to say to his face that he's going to become a hunter, that's the least he should be able to do. The friend keeps insisting, and then Shinbak says he never wanted to bring anyone down this path. But remembering that our boy said he wanted to be like him, he turns and says that in the end, he ended up dragging him along anyway. Back at the hospital, So-young is looking at the admission letter and is all happy. With that, the month of February came to an end and there's our boy practicing with his tired chains. March came with a sudden change, man. That was the boat for the students of the Hunter Academy. And now it was departing, guys. Next chapter. What was that about him saying he must be lying? There were still people there. The whole place is burning down. Looks like it's the dad, right, with the hand that killed everyone. And our boy yells, saying a hunter shouldn't act like that. Suddenly, he wakes up in bed, white hair. I don't think that was the protagonist. Who's this guy? I'm not even going to try guessing too much. Right? We'll find out soon enough. The one in the class is asked if he's okay. Right? Because it looked like he was yelling in his dream. He says yes. And then the dude says he must be the new student since it's the first time he's seen him there. The one in the glasses introduces himself as Pareem, but named Man, a second-year student. And the one with white hair shakes hands and says his name is Seal Subin. Nice to meet you. We are on the boat. The siblings are looking at a box full of supplies wondering why they are getting so much stuff. Are we going to get a survival arc in the forest like Hunter x Hunter? I'm down for that. Ah, I get it. That's our boy's suitcase and it looks like he stole a bunch of stuff from his dad. Damn it, I'm here daydreaming alone. Suddenly, the sister gets up and says she's going to look around. He tells her not to go alone, but she says she'll call him if anything happens. She knows the room is 105, and by our boy realizes he's raising a child. He looks out the window thinking the important thing is to know what they are going to do from now on. Meanwhile, there's a blonde guy on deck saying that this new life at school is going to be full of encounters, that he needs to make friends with strong people, right, to make life easier. But that was just what a beginner would think, and that's why Purium is acting like that. Apparently, he's not all there in the head, and the two beside him are trying to figure out what this crazy guy is talking about. The blonde returns to normal and says that getting close to other students is good, but next time, it'd be better to bring along a really pretty girl of his age. The one with glasses apologizes saying this crazy guy Woo Jin is kind of a girl addict. I don't blame that rascal. And there he is annoyed, saying he's been looking all over and hasn't seen anyone. But look who he ends up seeing, right man, feeding the birds. She's kind of sad that the birds aren't taking her chips when suddenly she drops the bag. But at the same second, Woo Jin shows up, picks it up, and hands it back. She all acutely thanks him, but this guy, man, he's not right in the head. Right away, he says that she couldn't attract any birds, but she managed to attract someone else. She's a bit confused while her friend wonders if it's okay to let this lunatic keep acting like that. Purium replies that since she's not running away, it's a revolution. A lot of people there had already participated before. The only downside was the event to pay a crazy expensive fee. Suman says it makes sense to pay. After all, whoever graduates from here doesn't need to worry about work ever again. But remembering that Hunter who burned everything, he says not everyone deserves that qualification. Purium glances over and wonders where Woo-jun was going with the girl. He says it's best to follow, since that guy's not right in the head. And there they go, man. Next scene, already in the room, she brought the guy to meet our boy, or actually brought him to report him, because right then, she says our boy should forget it. This guy was following her. He was asking if she had a boyfriend and even touched her. Next second, from outside, the friends see the fool getting kicked out of the room. He tells our boy that they could talk a bit, but Sun-yoon already goes to beat him up. The one with glasses comes to help while Subin is just sitting there like, what happened? Looks like next scene, our boy explained that she had been asleep for 12 years and right then the guy start apologizing to the fans saying they didn't know about that. Our boy says it's okay and apologizes for hitting them out of nowhere. Then the guy with glasses says that he and Subin must be the same age, and the guy greets our boy, who being all handsome like that, doesn't really care to greet back. A while later, outside, Pareem asks if he's in the hunter department, and he says yes. The guy wants to know if there's any hunter he's a fan of or that he likes. Our boy says that personally, no. His father was a hunter, so he was a bit influenced. Then the guy remembers that his name is Jae Sung-yun and asks if by any chance he knows Shinbak. And, yeah, man, just as we imagined, Subin's eyes are already wide open. He remembers the bastard the moment our boy says, yeah, that's my dad. The fool freezes while the others are shocked, asking if he's not lying, saying they are fans and all that. But Subin remembers very well who Jae Shinbak is. And now he's just sitting there, not even knowing how to process it. Man, right in front of him was the son of that person. Pareem says that his dad is a role model. When he was younger and dreamed of becoming a hunter, he always looked up to him for inspiration. Our boy asks if he doesn't want to be a hunter anymore, and he explains that now he's in the magic engineering department. He doesn't have any talent to be a hunter. No, that's because his rank E, man. Our boy keeps thinking, and is here, but is rank F. And right at that moment, the sister says exactly that, and the three of them are startled. Our boy gets kind of awkward, and Purium wants to know how he even became a hunter and got admitted if his rank F. So Bien already jumps in before he can say anything, explaining that they were admitted through a recommendation. He's rubbing his head, spinning side to side, but for sure we're gonna end up hating him, right man? Then he calls out to Purium and says that if he trains hard, he might also end up becoming a hunter like him, or at least, manage to get into the department to take the tests. Obviously, Subin must be thinking that this brat is just a spoiled kid who's there because of his dad. The trip continues with Pareem teaching his sister how to play on the Nintendo Switch, Woojin spitting game at the girls, and our boy pacing back and forth. That's when he sees Woojin there at the edge and goes over to ask if he's feeling seasick. He replies that, yeah, and our boy stops next to him. Then the guy asks why he wants to become a hunter. Sung-yun starts to say something about his dad, but Seol-subin interrupts and says that's not what he's asking. He wants to know what his beliefs are, what's his mindset. Out of nowhere, Man's trying to go full coach mode and change the boy. He remembers that moment when he saw himself as a kid, but says is not sure. He hasn't thought that deeply about it. Seol-subin then says that when you watch the news, you see all kinds of people who became hunters without the right motivation. Those who just want to make easy money or become famous. Our boy agrees that there are people like that, and that guy doesn't stop talking, man, saying that those people don't understand that becoming a hunter doesn't just bring perks, it also brings responsibilities, and that's why he hates hunters. Confused, Sung-yun asks that why does he want to become one, to which he replies that he wants to be someone who can save everyone, and that's why he wants to tell our boy not to go to the academy. Sung-yun pauses for a moment and asks what he's talking about. Subin says it's ridiculous that he told Pareem he could become a hunter even as rank E. The moment a person awakens, that's it. Their rank is set, and it never changes. Besides that, getting into this academy is insanely expensive, unless you have connections. Order like him with a rich dad to pay for everything. Hoof, man. Little does he know that dad isn't exactly supportive. Sung-yun immediately tells him to be careful with the way he says things. Besides, he was there because he awakened his powers after a lot of training. Seol-subin replies that awakening powers has nothing to do with hard work. If he awakened a power he didn't have before, that just means he didn't know what it did or didn't realize he had it. All that happened was that, by luck, he ended up using it. The fact that he got a recommendation to get into this place even as rank F, and even the fact that he, Seol-subin, was also there, all of it was because they were lucky. And saying he'll become a hunter without recognizing something so obvious just shows how immature he is, and that mentally, he's really at the same level as his sister. Man, obviously, our boy already went in to land a punch. It looked like it was gonna hit him straight in the face, but I don't know if something happened right there. The guy is still standing, untouched. Worse than that, the sister gets startled, and when she looks to the side, our boy is on the ground. She asks what happened, and Subin says he tripped out of nowhere, but is fine. But Sung-yun has no idea what happened, man. Right at the moment when his punch was about to land on the guy's face, the trajectory changed and he ended up on the floor. And the bastard still turns to our boy and says that someone like him who can't control himself and just goes around punching like that is only going to stain the hunter's reputation. Turns away saying that if he had any brains, he'd just give up. But then, man, something grabs his foot. It's our boy's porcelain chain. Again, the sister gets startled, and now Soon is the one on the floor. And then the protagonist says that maybe, yeah, he ended up in this place out of sheer luck, but no way in hell he was going to give up by choice. Stupid says he can stay there as long as he wants, but with that rank he's got, he's not going to survive. And our boy just replies, then I want to see that. Midnight, they'd meet to settle things. Yo, calling the guy for a midnight meetup. What is this, kid? A romantic duel? Sometime later, it starts pouring rain, and Siyun is remembering the fairy saying she didn't want to disappear. She suddenly wakes up and sees she's alone in the room. room, gets stopped, calls for Sung-yun, but notices he's not there. So there she is in the hallway wondering where he went while dying of fear. Out of nowhere, she's startled by Woojin right behind her, asking what she's doing there. She answers by asking him the same thing, and he says they are going through some stuff in a room and invites her to come along. She is all happy and says yes and forgets all about our boy. Already arriving at the room, there's a little group laughing, maybe our first wife, you. As soon as Woojin sees the girl's face, man, he gets all awkward. Weirdly, out of nowhere, he turns around and tells that friend of his, Yoonbai, that is leaving. The friend asks why, and he says she didn't mention that girl was going to be there. Our boy's sister though, already walks in all happy, saying the place is full of food. The orange-haired girl tells Woojin not to just stand there like an idiot and come sit too. Annoy, he says fine and joins in. The girl asks who the new one is and he answers that she's a friend of a friend or something like that. And when Soyeon says hi, the other one doesn't look happy at all. What's going on, man? So much drama on this boat. Pareem is kind of confused about Soyeon being there and asks where Soyeon went. She says she has no idea. When she woke up, he wasn't there. And, of course, Pareem also notices Subin wasn't in the room. Plus, the interaction between them seemed kind of weird. Maybe something was going on between those two. At that exact moment, the two are facing each other, and our boy wants to know why the other guy has a raincoat on. Subin says, obviously, because it's raining. But how's he going to fight while holding an umbrella? Our boy says that's the best way to keep the water off his body. The two stare each other down, both wondering if the other is an idiot. Right then, both of them also begin activating their powers, and Subin says that the power he has is the spirit of water. It was raining, and they were surrounded by the sea. In a place like that, his power was amplified, and if he lost control, our boy could end up dying. But Sung-yoon just throws the umbrella aside and asks, wasn't it him who wanted to start this? In the same second, the guy says, all right then. The spirit of water starts flying towards Sung-hyun and fires off a blast, a laser man. He dodges, which surprises the guy, then activates the chain and throws it in his direction. The dude says that's impressive, but, of course, the chain is easily destroyed. For now, Frank wasn't bad. It was just weird that the chain was weaker than a real one. Samyun's already in shock. Man, the bastard had two spirits. I'm just here to say that with what he's using, he's not going to accomplish anything. The resistance was so low, it couldn't even be used to attack or defend. Now there's our boy doing flips, dodging everything. The only thing's got left. Once again, he pulls the chain, launches another attack, but the thing shatters against the wall. And the bastard even asks if that's the only useless tactic he's got. He should have realized by now that he hasn't taken a single step since this started. It's time he understood why he doesn't belong in this place. The boy says that it's exactly because he hasn't moved or taken a single step that he didn't notice. When the guy looks down, man, there were some little chains by his boot. And the worst part is our boy had already hooked them to the grate before the guy could do anything and pulled him backward into the wall. And our boy says that he's only been using the same tactic because it's the only thing he can do. I thought he was about to drop an epic line, but the kid's just humiliating himself. Now, yes, he really humiliates the full man saying that he was bluffing, apparently because he doesn't seem to have that high of a rank. That's because if he did, he wouldn't be getting beat up by an F rank like him. Subin then changes his expression and says that, alright, we'll start taking this seriously. Sung-yun tells him to just come, but now we're back in the room with that buff guy saying this is theft. Looks like the girl there pulled an SS rank character, full of steel stats and all that, and she's kinda awkward, saying she just got lucky. Sovian asks what this is, but they come explain it's a board game. It seems to analyze the power of the person creating it, and the character sort of matches that. Damn, so that girl, there is S of rank, man broken. Now it's Purium's turn who clicks the little button and creates a B rank mage. What? I didn't really like the concept of this game, bro. The game's supposed to be badass. It's gonna be trash. Just leave that for real life. But Pareem is explaining that the same tech used in this game is the one he uses in the training equipment. Oh man, he handed it to Soyeon and told her to test it out. Thank God the thing didn't activate, but she's sad, wanting to know exactly why not. He's kinda confused. The blonde guy has no idea either, and the orange-haired girl says maybe she's too weak or doesn't have enough power. When suddenly, the device says that player 5's ability couldn't be analyzed and it was estimated that she might be a regressor. The game was explicit, man, with the girl being tortured. Everyone gets shocked and she receives a random secret class. Everyone gets excited saying they are jealous, that this is insane. Woojin then turns and asks if this is really true. Then he remembers that Ji-young told her she had to keep a secret at all costs, that she was a returner. She asked why, and he explained that most progressors come with a bunch of problems. Like her, for example, who simply lost 12 years of her life. And that's why they have a hard time fitting into society and end up committing all sorts of crimes and are looked down on. That's why many are considered walking disasters. With a reputation like that, it's better that no one even knows, or she'll end up being judged. Back in the game, she's all awkward, trying to explain and all, but Woojin just tells her to spit it out already and stop stalling. He wants to hear her story. He seems excited, wanting to know about the other world and what happened there. She gets the Dragon Slayer class, while everyone's curious to know more about her. Even though the others are excited, she obviously should be hiding it, right? But poor thing's a kid, weak-minded, and already getting all excited, right? Because no one's scared of her. The brown-haired girl says they don't care about that, and at that moment, she gets all excited and says, okay, she's gotta tell them. Of course, the orange-haired one probably doesn't like this one bit, right man, and right away says she heard that most progressors face countless creatures and opponents. By any chance, had she already killed someone? Right then, So-Yun remembers the guy whose chest she blew a hole through, but just when it's getting interesting again, we're back at the court, with Sabin saying it's a shame because even though his techniques and strategy were good, none of that was enough since he ended up on the floor, and with that, he must have realized that sometimes the easy power some people get is stronger than everyone else's hard work. That's why many give up on their dreams because of a low rank, while others, already showing the sister, get abilities out of nowhere and become untouchable. That's how the world was, be it power, family, connections, even abilities. There was a clear limit to what someone could achieve with just both power. When he entered the Hunter Academy, he was going to find out that there are people way worse, crueler, and stronger than him. In other words, in the end, he's just going there to suffer. Our boy, though, says that his dad wasn't even an S rank or in a rank when he started. Even so, he already achieved more than anyone ranked or above. He cleared countless A rank and S rank dungeons and saved countless people. Everything he did was basically through pure effort. He might be an F rank, but he wasn't going to give up that easily. Suvin says that apparently he knows a lot because of his father, and he asks if he remembers the S-rank gate that appeared in the Sea of Mappos 7 years ago. Sung-Yun frowns and asks why he's suddenly bringing that up out of nowhere, and the guy replies that that gate ended with countless casualties, not just because of the monsters, but many people also died because of the hunter's power. The protagonist asks why he's bringing that up, and Sabin says it's because no one criticizes anymore what happened back then. Sung-Hyung is about to say that the hunters had the reasons, but Sabin interrupts and says that it was his father who killed the younger sister he had, and it was ridiculous for him to say that he had no choice but to sacrifice a bunch of people to save a few. A hunter should protect everyone. Once again, he asks what Seal Sabin is trying to do, why he's going through all this and what kind of hunter he wants to become. While all of this is happening, there's someone peculiar listening from the side, and, of course, now we're back, right at the moment when the orange-haired girl asked if she had already killed someone. No one could say anything, and obviously, Soyeon got all awkward. She kind of got tangled up in her words and suddenly stood up, saying she was going to the bathroom. She put her hand on her chest, looking a little embarrassed and ran off. The fool laughed, then Purium asked Midori why she brought that up out of nowhere. She kind of apologizes and says the girl is in the engineering department anyway. Even Purium says no, she's in the hunter department. Suddenly, girl changes her expression and says that in that case, she's not ready. A hunter isn't someone who just has to kill creatures. Sometimes, they need to kill other people. Taking lives is part of the job, and with that mindset, she wasn't ready to be there. Sodium went to another part of the boat. Her heart was pounding, and she kept wondering why she ran away. All she had to say was that she hadn't killed anyone. Just thinking about that moment when she used that arrow made her heart race. She still feels like she doesn't deserve to be there. Once again, she remembers the ferry and wonders if she'll really be able to make new friends. That's when someone appears beside her. It's that girl who was there in the game too, saying hi and introducing herself as Maodan. She asks that she wants to go back and play there in the room, but Soyeon just says no. The girl says that to Shinjin because it's the first time she's seen someone get a secret class. Soyeon apologizes, but says she's not sure if she wants to participate. Thinking about what she went through made her scared. Mokdan says she understands how she feels. She awakened late when she was already in high school. The problem is that it happened while she was in the middle of class. She lost control, and most of her friends got seriously hurt. But even so, she believed in herself, and she wasn't going to let anyone intimidate her, especially because she regained control and managed to survive that. All she has to do is try hard so something like that doesn't happen again. Then Soyeon remembers when she spoke to Sion, who's the fairy of dreams, and asked if there wasn't a crying stone there before and how it moved. The fairy explains that she just talked to it and the stone went away. Yeah, it really was a crying stone and now it makes sense. And the fairy explains that she shared her pain with the stone and with that, it felt better and left. Because that stone, the clouds and people all shared the same tears. And that's how many friendships were formed. Soyeon smiled and said she was right. All she has to do is try. While they were thinking about heading back to the room, an attack happens and grabs their attention. They follow it and, of course, end up right in the middle of the protagonist's fight. At the moment when Sabin was talking about the Mappo incident 7 years ago, Sanyeon replied that no one blamed the father because he wasn't at fault back then. He had his reasons and it was necessary. Right when the guy shouted that his sister died and his father was a murderer, Soyeon was startled and hid, trying to understand what they were talking about. She only clearly heard that 7 years ago, her father had killed Sabin's sister. Then the guy asked why Sungyoon wanted to become a hunter. The protagonist responds that he already knows Sabin wants to be a hunter who saves everyone. But he, on the other hand, never even thought about what kind of hunter he wants to become. And he knows that a lot of people on this boat think the same way he does. But regardless of whether he had a goal or not, if he was taking it seriously and giving it his best, that's what mattered in the end. But that just makes Sabin even angrier, who says that they are completely different from each other. He went in again, but our boy managed to dodge, grab his stomach, and throw him to the ground. This Sudan guy isn't right in the head either, man. Out of nowhere, he starts screaming. A laser shoots up from him, tearing through the clouds. Then one of the spirits comes right up to our boy's face and sends him to the ground. But he notices something strange. The spirits were starting to disappear. And once again, Sungyeon comes back, man, but now lands a hit right in the middle of his face. That's when he realizes that out of nowhere, someone had placed a power seal on his arm. For sure, it was when our boy went in and grabbed him by the stomach. Right? What he can't understand is why a mere student had something like that. Obviously, right? The bastard stole everything from his dad. And then our boy says that in the end, he's still getting beat up a lot. Angry, Subin comes at him again while his sister is wondering what they are going to do. Then someone appears next to the two of them asking what's going on. In the middle of the fight, Subin was wondering what's up with this person who has such a meaningless goal taking things so seriously. He says that regardless of the goal, what mattered was what he did. That was completely wrong. They were not the same at all. Then Subin remembers the day of that dance when he woke up in a desert in the middle of nowhere, man. Around him were countless bodies and a bunch of dead and buried people. That day, he ran endlessly through the ruins, wondering why that happened to him. What kind of coincidence made him deserve that hell? The ground was soaked in blood, but the stars were shining like never before. He stumbles, crashes to the ground, and wonders why no one helped him in that tragedy. If they were hunters, they should have helped everyone there. Then he sees an illusion of himself older, saying that he would become the person he needed, someone who would save everyone. And now he's remembering Sun Yun saying that they are the same. But he was sure that if that wasn't true, then they were completely different. That's because he always wondered why hunters with the best powers always only use them for selfish desires. He then tells Sun Yun that he needed to take all of this more seriously. Sun Yun, though, just replies that learning responsibility and why he wants to be a hunter is the reason he's there. They stare at each other for a moment when suddenly they both hear something to the side and look. A really weird guy fired a shot into the air, and our boy asks who he is. We see a bit earlier that it was Pareem who had arrived, man, asking what the two were doing and why they didn't just stop already. He comments that they could get hurt, and just then, Soyeon remembers the guy she killed. Girl, calm down now. But she's calm, saying it was best to stop them right away. Pareem asks how, and she says just stop the two of them, man. Just get in the way, and they'll stop. But the guy says that a fight between skilled people is like jumping into a shootout. Then Soyeon imagines that if she jumps into the middle of the fight, it could end up activating her powers, which would be even worse. The kid then looks at her and tells her to stay there, but he'll handle it. The weapon he pulls is a magical tool he had, and that's how he fired the shot and made it go off. All this drama just for this kid to fire a shot into the air and try to give both of them a moral lesson. Luckily, right after that, Ji-young shows up from behind and asks if he really fired a weapon. As far as he remembers, magical tools aren't allowed in the academy or on the boat, so the three of them would have to go through discipline. Next scene with the boat stopping at the island, man, Woo-jin says he lost. Even he, who's considered one of the worst students, hadn't gotten a disciplinary penalty before arriving at the school. Subit is apologizing to Pareem, who says it's fine, but in the end, it was his fault for firing the weapon. Besides that, the weapon he brought was something the teachers asked him to develop, so the situation wasn't going to be that bad for him. But then he looks at our boy and says that for them, things were going to be worse. Either way, they deal with that later. It was time to head to the dorms. She thinks it's weird because she thought she'd be staying near Semyon, and he explains that actually, on this island, there are several dorms scattered all over. That's when So-hyun starts getting scared of being near that middle girl. Then the girls take a look at their phones and see that at least she and her brother are in the same dorm. Right when he says the name of the place, which is really weird, someone drops their suitcase on the ground. It was Subin, and, obviously, from the look on their faces, he must be in the same one. They just stand there looking dumbfounded until a woman shows up saying hi and introduces herself as Yun, and that she's the supervisor of their dorm. Soyeon starts to relax a bit. At least that strange girl isn't with her. And Mardian says that apparently they are together again, so it's gonna be great. Considering she's with her brother and her only friend, she's sure the semester is starting off well. Then we see about 100 years ago in a chaotic era when monsters devoured people and users of evil abilities roamed the world freely. That's when a man had the idea to create an educational center for ability users. After some years and avoiding the eyes of the authorities, he created a small school by himself on an isolated island. Sometime later, it became known as the Hunter School. In that place, nationality, age, or education didn't matter. As long as you had an ability and were awakened, you could be part of it. Ah, man, don't give us that fake marketing. We already know that if someone sucks, you kick them out. Even though the island seems small, the big difference with the school is that the whole island was the school, man. Not only did it have quality materials and really good training areas, but also a vast amount of information. The infrastructure there was as advanced as a big city. And what made that possible was that every hunter who dreamed of becoming strong saw that place as the sanctuary of education. And that's when Sodium was arriving, who had no idea of the prestige of the place and thought she was just arriving at some ordinary school. She's getting ready, and our boy shows up telling her that the entrance ceremony was about to begin. And so the first semester of the first year begins. And got a weird feeling because this story already blew a guy up in half, and now everything's super calm, you know. I'm sensing danger and chaos coming. Day of the ceremony in a dorm room, our boys they're saying that she finally arrived. It's Soyeon, he wants to know where the other person is. Mo-dan explains that Sabin was still getting ready to go to the thing, and, man, the boy's a bit off. Right, who needs to get ready for a ceremony? She says it's obvious he needs to get ready, especially because he's this year's freshman representative. And then there's Sabin, man, swearing in the name of 2,625 new students that they would follow all the school's rules. Our boy wonders how the guy who got disciplined before even arriving on the island was now the representative, but is forced to admit that if he's the rep, then at the very least, he must have one of the best talents. That water cannon he saw shoot up into the sky showed that he had the ability to deal as much damage as an orank. But what if they hadn't fought on the boat while it was raining? Or if he hadn't also prepared that power sealant thing? He knows that if Schumann had gone all out from the start, his chances of winning would have been way lower. But the thing is, like his dad said, he doesn't just have to survive. He has to get into the student council. He didn't have time to be happy just because he got admitted. Classes were starting right after the ceremony, and he imagined that since it's a hunter school, he's gonna be able to learn a lot of cool stuff. That's when Young shows up, the supervisor, and says that So Young has to head back to the dorm. Now she explains that her class is going to be different because she hasn't even finished elementary school. And Young says that for the first few days of school, while the others are attending morning classes, she'll be studying to pass the equivalency test. She asks what that is, and the woman says it's just the basics, man. She has to study Korean math, English, social studies, science, and all that stuff. Obviously, the poor girl already hated it because she thought she was there to use powers, man, but she's already in the car and off she goes. Sometime later, it's our boy's first class. The first thing Safadi was going to study was hunter ethics. Strangely, everyone's got this little red thing in their ear, and Subin is wondering where the teacher is if class starts in 1 minute. Obviously, must be one of those punctual types, man. The second it hits noon, the door opens. Someone with hair comes in, everyone looks and sees the guys on a kind of hoverboard, man. Everyone looks, and man, I said hoverboard, but it really is one. I didn't think the bastard was gonna come in like that. The guy looks at everyone and drops and nice to meet you. Only in Japanese, introducing himself as Hajiwara Jin, and he welcomes everyone to his class. Before anything else, he wants to make it clear that he hates the school, not just this one, but most institutions. Putting 40 people in the same room is the peak of inefficiency since no one's at the same level, especially considering the students there have special abilities and one is completely different from another. They must also be stubborn and have their own principles. He, for example, is the type that likes to be extremely efficient, and following that line of thought, he throws out the first question. Most small and medium-sized monsters could be taken down by modern military equipment, yet even so, only hunters are sent into dungeons. Why they think that is? Everyone's just looking at each other, not knowing what to answer. He says it's simply because of the economy. He says it's because weapons and tanks are extremely expensive, and there's a chance that the profit made from magic stones won't even cover the cost. On the other hand, a hunter just eats and poops. Even if they exert a huge amount of physical force, they are still extremely cost-effective, and that's how the hunter profession was born. In the end, it's all about money. That's the reason they are called hunters and not heroes or superheroes. But, obviously, for the hunter themselves, money isn't the only cost. In the middle of combat, they have to learn to use the minimum of their physical and mental energy. They need to be optimized and choose the best strategy to fight. Otherwise, they might run out of power in the middle of the dungeon. Song Yun remembers Ji Young saying that he spent too much energy in everything he did, and the teacher says there's nothing more common and more stupid than dying of exhaustion in battle. In other words, efficiency was the #1 quality a hunter needed. He calls on a kid up front who's already startled. Man asks what his ability is, and he replies that he's a construction sorcerer. That's just like our boy, Man. Never even heard of that. The professor wants to know the range of the ability, and he says 100 meters max. Then the professor asks if he can decompose ores and things like that in a physical structure. The guy hesitates a second before answering, and the professor immediately hits him with several questions, wanting to know how many kilos he can handle at once, how fast he can manipulate things, and what materials he works with best. Then hits him with it, says if he doesn't know any of that, he's a failure. Doesn't even know himself, let alone imagine understanding the enemy. With the amount of information he has, it's impossible for him to build a strategy in battle. Sung Hyun's just watching, thinking that the poor guy didn't even do anything and already got wrecked. Then Hajiwara looks at him and calls the curly-haired boy. Our boy asks seriously, and the guy says yes, tells him to go ahead and say his category. Our boy stays quiet, and the guy wants to know why. All twisted up there, man, he says he doesn't know about that category stuff. Then the professor is shocked, man, like a kid, not knowing what math is in the hunter world. Even Sabin is shocked that he really doesn't know anything at all. Then the kid beside him starts going off, asking if he's lost his mind. Why is he saying he doesn't even know his own category when that day on the boat, he was acting all full of himself? Sung Hyun says that was the first time he never heard about that construction sorcery stuff. Subin's staring wide-eyed, asking if he really doesn't know anything. Then he just walks off saying to forget it and that he should just focus on learning. Apparently, he thought about teaching the kid, but gave up real quick. He's there in the middle of everyone staring, thinking there's something weird about this place. But look at the advantage that sneaky guy has. Right, man, he already went to talk with Ji Young. The guy said he was busy, but our boy, right, asked for a bit of help. Already sitting down, he explains that everyone's talking like, that stuff about classes and whatever is extremely essential. He finds it strange though because he's already read a bunch of books, files on the internet and all that, but he doesn't know anything about this. Ji Hyun leans back and says the internet and books aren't going to help him in this case. Then he leans in and asks if he can ask something. Did he at least have an ability user license? A little awkward. Sung Yoon says not yet, and right away the guy jolts, asking how that's even possible. Even if he didn't want to become a hunter, an ability user has to have one. Our girl explains that he was never able to get one since kids and teenagers need parental permission. Right away, Ji Young understood, right, man. It was the fault of that bastard, Shin Bak, who did everything to stop him from becoming a hunter. He then explains that at least his sister, who's a returner, has to have a license. But, whoa, she's all confused, asking a license for what? Yun apparently got a call from Ji Young, right, and is just finding this out now too. At that moment, he closes his phone and our boy says it's fine. When he becomes an adult, he'll get one. But the guy says he's screwed if that's the case. Also, he wants to know how the kid's been training if he doesn't know anything. Sunjin says he always trained physically with Juyin, but Juyin always said he couldn't teach much about the boy's ability because it was too complex and he had no idea what it was about. But Jiyeon says that wasn't the case. For sure, he didn't do it not because he didn't know, but because he couldn't. Our boy, confused, asks why, and the guy says that when you register, you have to sign a special license and it basically creates a pact. That pact is what ensures that any hunter with a license informs others about abilities. That connection links all the hunter's energy, so it's something impossible to break. That's why the information going around in the media or on the internet is just the tip of the iceberg. Besides that, most of the info is actually fake just to confuse everyone. Sun Yun, confused, asks why there's so much restriction on this control. And, obviously, Ji Young says it's because abilities are extremely dangerous by nature. Even the most insignificant ability user could kill countless people depending on how they use it. And the problem is that an ability is invisible. You can't just take it out of someone's hand like a gun. That makes deaths caused by them even harder to trace or understand. If everyone learned this power easily, public safety would go back about 100 years when there was death everywhere. Our boy's just scratching his head, yet never heard anything about all this. And gee, young man is just like me, realizing this kid is amazing and went through hell because of that damned father who didn't teach him anything and made sure he had no chance. Even so, the boy impressed him. He had well-trained instincts, and it was bizarre that he'd gotten this far under such unfavorable conditions. Now he's happy because he's sure the kid does have talent. He then tells the boy that at least there's good news. Even without a license, students of this academy will get the necessary qualification. He hands him a blue cube and says it's called Blue Cube. The name fits. And this gave access to the exclusive information network for hunters. It was for him now. He was going to send him a message later, and he should study the sites he organized as much as possible. Sun Yun stands up, and the guy just tells him not to let anyone know he doesn't know anything. This being the most prestigious school in the hunter world, there's a certain elitism when it comes to abilities, and he doesn't want him screwing up his chances of joining the student council right from the start. But right man, he already knows he messed up, but says he'll be careful. Meanwhile, So-Yun also received a cue, but that one's red. The girl tells her to give it a press. The thing opens up, and with that, she's confirmed as a student. A little window pops up there, and the woman says it's just like ChatGPT. Just ask anything about hunters, and it'll answer. She's shocked, and the thing is going to tell her everything, and the Q says yes. Just ask, and it'll speak. She gets ready and then asks if it knows about the incident that happened in Mappo 7 years ago. She wants to know exactly what went down that day. The system replies that the words are ambiguous and it's not understanding. What kind of incident is she referring to? She's about to say it's the one where countless people died and her father was there, but the woman already interrupts and says that kind of question isn't a good idea. How about asking something exactly like the questions her friends ask? Shortly after, the teacher tells her to take a look at the school chat apparently. Some anonymous messages inviting people to eat, others posting cat pics. So-Yun says it looks pretty normal, and the woman says, yeah, the students are actually normal, not crazy in the head like certain people. Until a message pops up asking who was in Hunter Theory class today. There was a guy there who seemed to not know absolutely anything. The person asks what his name was, and someone else replies that it was some guy named Jae Sung-Yang. Seems like the boy doesn't even know his own category. So how did he get admitted to this place? She's already seeing a bunch of people trashing her boy, and some even saying the school is corrupt. But in the little corner on the right, someone saying is cute. Where are you, naughty girl? Show yourself to us. Meanwhile, our boy is walking around the school already doing some studying. Right, man. At least the kid's trying. A message asks if they should investigate, and now someone's standing in front of him. The one who answered in the chat that there was a way to find out is now saying hi. It's two reporters asking if his guy Sung-Yin from the hunter department. The moment he confirms, the guy already gets excited and tells Emily to grab the camera. Damn, they are really not gonna make life easy for the poor guy who's already all messed up, doesn't know anything, has a tire chain power, and is still getting slammed. The guy introduces himself as someone from the school's journalism club. They go after all the interesting news. Out of nowhere, he slips a ring onto our boy's finger. Pretty suspicious, hot man. The thing lights up, and our boy asks, right, what is this? The reporter laughs and says that just like everyone said, he really doesn't know anything at all. That thing was a rank measuring device and already confirmed his rank F. Out of nowhere, the guy raises his arm and says a rank F got accepted as a hunter. If he publishes this in the newspaper, it'll be quite the headline. Obviously, while the guy is reporting the news, Sung-Yoon's not happy at all and asks who allowed him to do something like that. But the guy just holds out the MIC and wants to know what little tricks he used to get admitted. The rumors in the community say he paid a hefty sum to the school. Others say he's the son of some extremely famous hunter. Our boy though loses it, goes up to the reporter, and tells her to load a camera. She gets scared and obeys, but the friend says no. She can't call herself a journalist acting like that. Sung-Yun just says things are going to get physical if he doesn't give back that ring. The weird guy smiling like a lunatic says if he wants this interview to end, he'll have to knock him down, which is impossible for a rank F student. But there he is on the ground, man, begging to be let go, saying he'll return the ring. No need to worry. Sung-Yun, though, is already wondering how he's supposed to get into this so-called student council with people like this around. Next scene, something says that changes came quickly. Hajiwara says the creature combat tests would be conducted in teams of 3 or more. The guy in the tank top tells Sung-Yin that his team is already kinda full. Another one replies that unfortunately, he doesn't have space for the boy either. And a girl says they only accept people of rank C or higher. What was his? Man, poor guy's already seeing that everyone's going to reject him. So he gives up to the professor and says there's not much he can do. No one's accepting him into a team. Poor guy. and Hajiwara just replies that that's the case, he's going to have to do the test alone. He gets surprised and startled, but is already face to face with the test monster. Before he could say that this was unfair, he already took one to the face and hit the ground. He knew he was going to be treated like that, but he didn't expect things to change so fast. And with that, he gets a score of 0. In another class, a teacher calls for student Jae Sunjian and tells him to come up with a dungeon strategy based on what's written on the board. The poor guy, though, is still learning about abilities. How is he supposed to come up with a dungeon plan already? The guy keeps firing questions at him, and he gets them all wrong. And then the teacher already comes down on him and wants to know why he's even in this place. He just apologizes, right man, kind of angry, but can't say much. Already at the cafeteria, he's there stewing in rage. He didn't care about the students, but the teachers were trash like this and were already getting on his nerves because that bastard just kept asking him questions the entire class. Not to mention it was clear he was giving him the hardest questions. How was he supposed to know the weakness of a monster that showed up in 1986? Then Sobium shows up and gives our boy a little high, but he gets startled. Maodan comes and pushes her, giving a little wave and making a face at him, which already tells him that with the terrible reputation he's got, it's better not to get too close to his own sister. Otherwise, the poor thing's going to suffer by association, and things will just get harder for her too, especially because he didn't care about that kind of treatment. From the first to the last day at school, he's always been alone and nothing's changed. The only problem for him is the whole student council thing. At this rate, it'll be hard to get an offer. He needed someone strong by his side, and look who shows up, Subin, asking if he's going to eat alone every time. Our girl asks what he's doing there, and Subin just ignores her. Says, of course, nobody wants to be friends with the person who knows nothing. Damn seal Subin, been alone your whole life, because the moment someone sat in front of you, you stood up. Until Subin says he had something important to talk about, it was about his older sister. He asks what, and the guy says it's because she's in a situation that's not looking good. He's a bit confused and tells him to explain the details. Myra stopped to think about it, but his sister Ai was a bit older than him. And then it clicks that yesterday, Soyeon also took part in that creature test. The blonde turns around and asks what she's doing just standing there. She's a little confused, not saying anything, and the woman asks if she doesn't know how to use a weapon or why she didn't use any ability. Mogai tells her to calm down and says she did her best to make sure everything went well. The blonde wants to argue, but turns around and says, fine, then forget it. Off to the side, Soyeon apologizes and Subin hears everything. He says it seems things worked out since Moden handled it, but apparently, Soyeon is already being talked down in her class. The poor girl is thinking that just as expected. Since that day, she's been having trouble using magic. Jijiang had already warned that if she used her powers and got involved with that mess, she'd end up in the teacher's radar. She remembers the guy she killed, the fact that something happened 7 years ago with her father, and that whole cube thing no one lets her explain. All of that leaves her tired and confused about why school is so exhausting. Suddenly, she dozes off and wakes up some time later to see the class has already ended. She asks herself what kind of idiot sleeps in an important class, but then notices someone else was next to her man. She sees Subin there, handing over the note she needed to copy. She thinks about stopping him, but remembers that he fought her brother. He gives her a hard stare. She gets startled and runs off. She's on the stairs alone, telling herself she's an idiot. When someone shows up behind her and asks why she's crying, man, who's this guy? Ah, right. It's the guy from the board game. Maybe he's a good person, I hope. He tells her not to be sad over something so silly and says he can show her the notes. She thanks him. He gets a bit awkward. The guy says just to follow him. But when they get to another room, Junal calls out to Yunbai and tells her to show the notes to the girl. Soyeon realizes that the bastard was pretending to be nice, but he hadn't taken any notes either. The girl, a little embarrassed, says that he warned last time it will be the last time, but is doing it again. He, however, says that actually it's a freshman who couldn't take notes and is asking her for help. Dumbies, they are looking a bit awkward, and Junal says he can afford to fail this year. Until Soyeon speaks up and says if she doesn't want to show them, then she doesn't have to. Asking someone to do something against their will is kind of wrong. Suddenly, Junal's expression changes and he says that with the way she's talking, she's making it sound like he's doing something bad. Without even knowing her properly, he stepped away from what he was doing just to help her. So why is she acting like that? But Sodi and Man just replies that she really does think it's something wrong. People in the back start laughing and she walks away saying she's leaving. But what the hell, man? The Limited grabs her arm and says she's not leaving like that. Apparently, she's really talented at making people look like fools. She tells him to let go, but he says she'll have to clear out that misunderstanding before she leaves. Until bam, So Hyun smacks him right in the nose. What the hell? The whole room is shocked, and Junal is stunned that he's bleeding, trying to understand how she managed to hurt his body. Was it some kind of ability? She says no, and he says it's impossible. He has the body body of a martial artist, someone with her physical build shouldn't be able to do any damage. Then he says now it makes sense because she's a regressor. Obviously, he said it on purpose so the whole class would find out. Some start saying that if a girl with that kind of body could hurt a martial artist, she must have used an ability. Junli asks why all regressors are like this. Does using an ability on someone mean nothing to her? He charges at her, saying he should have known since back on the boat. But suddenly, something slams into his face. Man, it's Seal Subin, saying he sure has a big mouth for someone acting unjustly. Junli asks who he thinks he is, and he just responds with his name, saying he's a freshman this year. Besides that, he's been watching everything from the start and hasn't seen Soyeon use her ability even once. Junli says that's impossible. She had to use her ability, otherwise, there's no way she could hurt him. And now he just realized Subin used an ability too. But he just ignores what the fool said and says Junli should already know that regressors have extremely superior physical ability. And besides, no one in this room saw any kind of power being used, so it's clear she didn't use anything. In the end, even if she had used it, he was the one who grabbed her arm first. Not to mention, he clearly exposed her secret on purpose and lunged at her. Compared to using an ability, his actions were way worse. Juno goes after him saying he's gonna be up the scrawny kid. But, man, out of nowhere, there's just a flash of light behind him and he answers that he never runs from a fight. Strangely, some girls nearby raise a sign with his name out of nowhere and Juno realizes he's about to get beat and embarrassed. Back in the cafeteria, he tells our boy that he understands is trying to avoid his sister to protect her and not mess things up for her. But now that everyone knows she's a regressor, her life isn't going to be easy either way. Our boy puts his hand to his face and says he doesn't understand why, but things are never easy. Mr. takes a look, sees the sister, and asks what he's going to do. It's not like he has much power to help her either. Then out of nowhere, Woo-jun's right next to him saying that maybe he is away. He turns asking when the crazy guy even showed up, and Woo-jun says this instant ramen used to taste better. Back in the day, they were softer, tasted better, and had more meat. The old lady from the cafeteria was way more skilled. It's just a shame that accident happened. The two are still staring at him, not really understanding, and the blonde guy slaps the table saying he misses the old cafeteria lady. Subin wants to know what he's doing there, while Sung Hyun says that's not the important thing. He wants to know what Woo-jun meant when he said there was a way to fix this. They turn and say what they need is to improve her reputation. If they started to be spoken of more positively, for sure people would bother them less. Sung Hyun replies that it's easier said than done, and Woo-jun says he has to get ready for the observation class in 2 weeks. Our boy asks what that is and he explains that it's a match that'll happen between classes 90 and 91. All freshmen have to participate, and the ones who come to watch aren't the parents. No, man. It's the top hunters in the entire industry, including members of the biggest guilds and the famous ones, the heads of corporations and all that. Man, everyone involved in the hunter world comes to see the freshman. Unfortunately for our boy, right, his dad is a hunter. So at the same time, he has a dad. He also has a hunter, but he sees it as a great opportunity to improve his reputation. Subin, however, says that if you count the number of people, that's a lot. How is that even going to happen? The guy says that last year, they were divided by student ID. If nothing changed, it'll be the same way. All he has to do is find a rank D student to train with and show what he's got. If our boy wanted, he could give him the name of a really weak kid. But, man, as if that's what he wants. Woo-jun's already kinda confused and sure that bastard wants to fight against a rank O or rank S. Sometime later in the library, he remembers that he talked to G and asked to take a look at student records. Obviously, the guy said, right man, that only teachers could see that. But the sneaky guy, it seems, handed him the card to deliver the welcome message to Kai Ji-yeon. He went to check out the students and find out who the regressors in these classes were this year. He doesn't say so, but it looks like he found out who they are. And now the plan is to challenge them when the observation class begins. And then when everyone is watching, he just has to use the chain to immobilize that person. Man, it's such an obvious and easy plan. No doubt it's gonna go wrong. Scene changed to another dorm where Junil is slamming the table, saying that damn Solian made him look like a fool. Miju wants to know what he's going to do, and he says the perfect chance is at the observation class. He's going to show that kid who's boss. Miju laughs and says she's not too confident that the guy who ended up with a bloody nose from a slap is going to win. But she agreed with him that it's really easy to hate that sodium and asks if he wants her to take care of it for him. Junli asks if she thinks she'll win, and she says, yes, definitely, but in exchange, he'll lure her favor. Junli keeps insisting, saying her chances are low. The girl's a regressor, but Meiju just says that it's exactly because she's a regressor that it'll be easier. And here we go with the time skip. Folks, it's already 2 weeks later, and our boy is ready. He opens the door, and damn, there's an entire arena packed, my dude. And the sneaky guy says it's time to prove himself. Meanwhile, So Young is there in class, saying she couldn't do anything again. Apparently, it was about using a pencil to cut up some little blocks. I didn't really get it. Then Ji-Gyeon calls her and asks her to come with him for a bit. Right after, he says he's taking her to where the observation class is happening. But they are kinda in the middle of nowhere, and she asks if there really is a class here. He says yes and tells her to just go through that door. There were several paths leading down to the underground of Area 13. While going down, he asks if she's ever been underground before, and she says no. Then he says that back in the day, the school used to be a big secret, so most of the buildings weren't on the surface, they were underground. As she starts going down, she sees the place as a massive city. She asks why they have a secret base, and he says it's where the most dangerous and important things are kept. Incredible items and magical tools that could bring chaos and destruction. There were even terrifying creatures that have been captured for research. Besides that, there are secret places that not even he and a teacher have any idea what they are about. She, however, is just looking at the city and making little flowers with her breath. Right outside the elevator, he asks how school life has been lately and if she's having any trouble. She says it's still hard to make friends, but at least she has Modin. Not to mention Parim and Woojin are nice to her too. Sabin, she's not sure. She thinks is a good person. Aside from those, though, the rest of the school avoids her, and she figures it's because of the issue with that guy, Juno. She got nervous when he came at her because she was scared she'd get hit and end up triggering that power. She gun-pats her head and tells her to relax. Regardless of the danger it might cause, she could count on him and her brother to stop the power. What happened last time definitely wouldn't happen again. The door opens and there we are inside the arena. Hajiwara comes up to greet them, saying he's exactly 1 minute and 42 seconds late. But Ji-Young just ignores it and says now he'll explain what this class is about. As previously announced, this would be an observation class. The seniors and juniors would form teams and fight in 10-minute matches. And the reason this is happening underground is because of this arena built by Matu Engineering. Little Button Click raises a barrier. Explains that they'll be given equipment and some training clones will be created. Any damage they take will be transferred to the training clone. He lands a punch in Hajiwara's stomach, but it's the clone that takes the hit to the stomach. That just means in this match, they can do whatever they want and use all the power that got without worrying. Right then, Hitsuru understands what he meant about her not needing to worry too much either. The professor tells them to relax. It's supposed to be interpreted as seniors giving some lessons to juniors. Obviously, Subin and our protagonist, knew that didn't make any sense at all. A glance to the side and all the hunters, they were staring at them like they wanted to eat them alive. Those guys were all from the corporation's and it looks like there's the Shinson girl from Estrella Roma and someone from UJ. They are extremely important guilds along with these other corporation guys and so on. There's a whole bunch of them with 4 big names. If I say them all now and you'll forget, so when they do something important, I'll tell you. Looks like the nerdy glasses guy thinks it's kind of pointless to waste time on these kids. But the guy, the older one on the left, his name is Kang Ho, says it must be his first time at one of these observation classes. He might be thinking this is going to be a friendly match, but all the students must have realized already. Everyone sees this as a chance to show off their abilities to countless guilds. In other words, what they are doing here is scouting for talent. So it'd be good to pay close attention and not miss anything. Otherwise, those bastards from UJ are gonna snatch up the gems. Walking around, Woojin is chilled so far wondering who his opponent's going to be. He's looking at our boy's direction, saying he's the tastiest. But, actually, he's looking at the girl behind him carrying a sword. And Sun Yoon went up to her and challenged her to a duel. Everyone was shocked, the girl looked kind of confused. But our boy's got a bad reputation, and people around are already mocking him, asking if dogs just like getting beaten up. The girl just turns around without saying a word and walks away. Stupid, and everyone else is asking if he's lost his mind. He had to know that girl was a regressor. But for our boy, that was the biggest advantage. As long as his chains worked like a sealing weapon, you had a chance to win. Woojin comes in over and compliments him, saying he must have an ace up his sleeve to be this confident, but agrees it was a good picks and she's the weakest of all the regressors. Sun Yoon asks why, and he says that for some reason, she doesn't use any ability. Seems like she only fights with magical weapons and sealed her own powers at the end of last year. In the end, he was going to be fighting against a regressor that doesn't use any regressor abilities.